There is perhaps no motion more purely human than lifting one's head up to gaze at the stars. Nobody is immune, and our fascination with the night sky is as old as civilization itself. I've personally always been obsessed with the night sky, and nothing has captured my imagination more than the Aurora Borealis. They're ephemeral, mercurial, and rare, and I've made it my life's work as a photographer to document them as often as possible. But I've always felt that humans are disconnected from the cosmos as we stand on the ground and look up. What if we changed our perspective? How close can we get? I'm very fortunate in my career to have gotten to see the things I have. I've had sunrise at Machu Picchu. I've been 20 feet from a wild polar bear, and hands down, the Aurora Borealis is the single most beautiful natural phenomenon. There's nothing I would rather photograph. If it can be worked into any trip, it's the thing I want to do.
The first time that Nate brought this idea to me was, I think, the second he got back from Sony's condo event. He walked in the door and I could just tell something was on his mind. He was so distracted, and then it came out. What if we put a camera near space from a weather balloon and filmed the Aurora? And I mean, he had me at Aurora.
I'm still not entirely sure where this idea came from. You know, as a child, I was always obsessed with flight. You know, I literally attended space camp. I built rockets in my garage. So it was only a matter of time before I figured out a way to integrate that into my photography career. Last year, I was at an event with a few other photographers, and we were talking about the Aurora Borealis and how unbelievably cool they are. And coincidentally, there was a hot air balloon there at this dinner, and I looked over at it, and I just kind of like stopped talking, and I was like, oh my gosh. So to my knowledge, this had never been done. Nobody had ever taken cinema quality footage of the Northern Lights from the stratosphere before. And anytime you're the first to attempt something, there are going to be some serious hurdles to overcome. I spent nearly 7 months researching how to pull this off, talking to engineers, sketching out designs, building concept models at my apartment in Seattle, and eventually I settled on a pretty innovative suspension system to help stabilize the camera in flight. The industry standard for weather balloons is to attach the payload via a single tether, but this creates an unstable pendulum motion even in perfectly calm conditions. By using carbon fiber rods to extend the payload diameter, we increase the moment of inertia, and it makes the payload more resistant to swiveling. From there, attaching the payload to the balloon with 4 independent tethers dramatically reduces side-to-side sway during the flight. We got to Fairbanks, and it finally was like, it felt real. I felt less stressed. The planning was over. Now it was just go time, and the execution is where you start to feel comfortable. You start to actually, it feels like it's in your hands. You're not theorizing anymore. But the weather report was dismal. And unfortunately, we didn't really have the luxury of waiting for it to clear. We had to be there during the first few days of fall. Because during the summer, it's never dark, so of course you can't see the aurora. But as winter sets in, there's this massive jet stream in the Arctic, known as the polar vortex, that would just absolutely shred our balloon. So there's this very narrow window, only like 2 weeks long, where we can fly, but we get to Fairbanks and it is just absolutely dumping rain on us.
We just kind of played a waiting game. We sat there for days, hitting refresh on all of the weather websites, hoping to find a window.
I am a little concerned. These high altitude clouds, let's say, like 10,000 meters, which is only a third of how high we're gonna go, but we're gonna pass through it. And we're looking at 45, 50 mile an hour winds. And that concerns me. That sucks. After 4 days of bleak gray skies, we finally got a weather window. The skies were predicted to be clear. The aurora was predicted to be pretty strong. It was go time. It was as close as we were gonna get. But before we could fly, we had a lot of unpacking and assembly and construction to do.
Styrofoam is worse than a skin disease.
It is. I'm sure this still goes through that hole with all these adjustments.
Yeah, and the tape.
Yeah.
Oh, that tray doesn't go all the way to the front, huh?
No.
Yeah, I think the angle looks good. We spent something like 17 hours building this payload, but we knew this break in the weather might literally be our only chance to fly.
Something tells me there's a good time coming. Just wait and see. You got to put a little faith in something. Might as well be with me. You feel it when the bass starts grooving. Go ahead and move your feet. Around here we ain't afraid.
It's good. Really work.
Yeah, this feels good. This is a lot of space to play with.
Yeah, this field is huge. We've got plenty of clearance with these trees. Our winds are at 0.
It's super calm. Yeah, no, I think this is perfect.
Nice. Let's do it.
I feel free. So free.
Yep, it's a parachute, all right. We set up our cooler with our camera in it and everything. We string out all of our lines. Everything's ready to go. This is my personal hell. We had to try and pack everything up super delicately, but there's just no possible way to take these tiny little kite strings and store them safely. We followed this mental checklist. None of us had ever inflated a weather balloon before, which it's probably not smart to have your first time doing something like high altitude ballooning. You attach $5,000 worth of delicate electronics and launch it into the sky. But that's what we're here for. Oh boy, I forgot I did all this.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, I see. Going to be our, so it doesn't lift off while filling tether. But when we tape the neck of the balloon to this, we're going to take another length of that yellow string and tape it to the neck, also clipped to this.
Yep.
That is the biggest balloon I've ever seen in my life. Holy shit, this is an enormous balloon. Yeah. To make sure that it's sealed?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, here we go.
Are we supposed to hold it?
Oh my gosh, this is scary.
There it goes.
Just gonna empty the tank more or less.
Yeah, it's easy.
We'll bust out the scale probably long before that just to make sure,
Yeah.
but
We about there?
that looks good. That's
Oh, it's about perfect.
yeah, just exactly 4,000 grams of neck lift, which should pretty much hit us with our target positive lift over the payload weight.
Do you want a little more?
No,
Okay.
I think that's fantastic.
Charging.
What do we got for settings there? How's that
We've
look?
got, 1/25 of a second, f1.8, ISO auto, maxed out at 102,400. Should be good.
Okay, So I remember in the moment, I tied a little loop in long string and I ran it up through the spreader that was attached to the balloon itself, and I carabinered it to my belt loop, and that's what was holding the balloon. So I'm sitting there with I'm getting a wedgie from a weather balloon, and there's the strobe just flashing in Autumn's face, so she's half blind.
Nate had carabinered himself to the balloon, and then he looked over at me and he was like, okay, cut it, let it go. And I just panicked. I was like, what? Wait, what? And I feel like I blacked out.
Strangely enough, on that first flight, I had 100% confidence that we did everything right. We're at 25,000 feet though.
Wow, and how long? It was...
It's been like 25 minutes. Like 1,000 feet a minute. That actually really
yeah.
puts this balloon in perspective though. It does Mount Everest in under half an hour.
That's wild.
And then we started to drive and we started to follow the GPS, and that's kind of when the anxiety starts to set in.
And we got back home, we settled into our couches, and we were just glued to our laptops, watching these GPS coordinates tick in.
There it is, it went back up.
Cool, curve north. 113,500, it keeps climbing.
Ooh, 62 miles per hour. Ooh, it's zipping. We're so excited that it hits 100,000 feet. You know, we never thought that it would actually reach 100,000 feet. And then it goes up to 110, 115, and we're just thinking, whoa, this is awesome. I never thought that it would get this far.
And then it just sits there at 117,000 feet. And it stays, and it stays, and it stays.
It turned out there was a little bit of a fatal calculation error in the amount of lifting power that we were going to need. For a standard balloon flight, as it climbs in altitude, the balloon expands to compensate for the decreasing air density. Eventually the balloon can't expand anymore and it bursts, at which point the payload safely returns to Earth under a parachute. However, for this particular flight, an unexpected high altitude cold front drastically changed the air density and caused the balloon to reach neutral buoyancy and stop ascending, meaning it never popped. Oh, I feel like I'm gonna throw up.
We watched it go for 2 hours up at 117,000 feet. It's 3:30 in the morning and we're all so tired, so sleepless, so ready to watch this thing explode and come down.
And we could see it traveling 90 miles an hour to the east. I will never forget that feeling of just sheer panic.
So we're watching it, and then all of a sudden, Austin goes, oh, it burst, and just a sigh of relief. And then it gets to 48,000 feet, and at this point, I thought it was safe that I should probably go wake up Nate and tell him.
Eventually, Autumn threw the door open, woke me up, and I said, Nate, it burst. The balloon finally burst, it's on the way down. And I finally fell asleep that night. I got some sleep. I woke up the next morning and it still said 48,000 feet. It was the same GPS coordinate. That was the last one that had transmitted. It was a tough way to start the day with the realization that the absolute worst case scenario had come to be. Both GPS units had failed. You know, it's almost 100 degrees below zero at that altitude, and we planned for that, but we never accounted for potentially spending 3 extra hours up there. And it was just too much for the batteries. So I drank about 11 cups of coffee and tried to do some quick atmospheric modeling, which is tough because retroactive wind data is not readily available. The problem in Alaska is just how big everything is. I nailed down some coordinates that look like a pretty small area, and in retrospect, it was over 1,000 square miles. We were essentially trying to find a single styrofoam cooler lost in an area 4.5 times the size of Chicago. We didn't have a choice but to go look for it, but I think even driving to go get in the helicopter, we knew that the chances were astronomical. The payload had landed so far away that we had to leave Austin behind to carry enough fuel to get there and back. We spent 3.5 hours searching, but this was harder than finding a needle in a haystack. You know, the area was just too large. We didn't have enough fuel to keep looking, and eventually we had to make the very difficult decision to turn around and head back.
I never actually thought that we would never find this. I felt like someone had ripped my heart out and thrown it up into the helicopter blades.
It was devastating. Honestly, I always knew that failure was not even just a possibility, but a likelihood with this project, but I never thought it would be a complete loss. I thought the failure would be maybe we didn't get good footage, or it wasn't stable, or the camera broke when it landed or something. I never thought, for some reason, I just had never come to terms with we would completely lose everything. Okay, I guess I gotta call Sony and tell them that we lost an A7S III. The fun part of the job. I was in a dark place for a couple days. I didn't really know if I wanted to continue. We had just literally thrown $10,000 in the trash, and we had one camera left. I was like, is it even worth gambling this? Like right now, we've only lost half of our stuff. Is it worth losing all of our stuff? Is that shot so cool? Is this gonna be worth our effort? We got word that over the weekend there was gonna be a G1 class Aurora storm. And I realized we were here for one thing. You know, what was the point of that year of planning? And all those like sleepless nights, and I filled an entire sketchbook with diagrams. What was the point of all that? So what was the point of all that if we don't give it our best shot? I would rather try 100% and fail 100% than give up and wonder. Word.
We finally got another weather window, so we found a new location, one that was actually absolutely perfect. Filling the second balloon was still stressful, but we learned from the first failure and we made some adjustments. We recalculated the balloon lift to ensure that it burst. We connected way larger batteries for the GPS and added more heat packets to keep the payload warmer.
I kept going through this checklist in my brain. And every time I went through that checklist, I couldn't think of anything that we had left off. If you can't come up with anything that you've left off, you have to accept that it's going to go right until you're proven otherwise.
We thought of everything this time. We're no longer flying into the unknown. We've done this once. We kind of know what we're doing. And to be honest, like, fuck it, let's try this thing. Okay, we got it. We got a connection. Okay, both GPS systems are good.
We're facing north.
Yeah, ish. Let's turn a little more. Okay, you ready?
And my hands are underneath it, and I'm just gonna release.
You're holding a little lower than me, I think. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
You wanna do like 1, 2, 3 and go?
Yeah.
All right. 1, 2, 3,
Go.
go.
Well, still as calm as we can. Wow. We felt good. And we let it go. And that was it. Up she goes. Okay. That is the most stressful thing ever. Let's go home and not sleep.
All right. This one's gonna work.
We're finding that one.
This one's gonna work.
God, I hate that I had to say that. I have
Let's go home.
never felt this uncomfortable in my entire life.
Like literally I can feel like I'm gonna start crying. Oh God. Okay. I'm like literally
Can't say we didn't give it our best try, right? The balloon was up there, the Aurora was happening, and it was just a matter of having everything else function properly.
This is my life right now.
Captain Hat.
It's just me hitting refresh every 5 seconds. Again, and again, and again.
We have officially broken 120,000 feet and climbing. Hopefully soon it will descending. The PTSD from having a balloon that didn't pop the first time is pretty significant. And so this second flight finally crests 120,000 feet, higher than we'd ever expected this to go, and it hits 122,000 feet. And then the next reading comes in at 122,000 feet. And then a third reading comes in at 122,000 feet. And you've never seen a room of 3 people so defeated. If Fairbanks wasn't landlocked, we would have just walked into the ocean.
It's coming down! It's coming down!
You say
It's coming down!
What? Oh,
It is
thank God.
coming down!
Oh, thank God.
Yes!
Oh.
Yes! Yes!
Oh, I'm never doing this project again. This has been the worst project of my entire life.
This is a good thing.
Oh,
This is the look of relief over here.
that was the most stressed out I've ever been in my entire life.
Me and Nate, we split the last beer in the house, and that was a good moment. Yeah.
Up and over. There it is.
And I don't know why. I can't contain whatever's burning inside. I gotta find a way to figure it out. I found the answers and there ain't no doubt. You got what I'm looking for. Yeah.
It's a 45-minute flight. Our pilot, Mike, landed us right on top of a mountain, and we walked 500 feet down that mountain right to our payload. It was right there.
Looks like, yep, 300 feet. Yeah, I see it, yeah. Oh, it is upside down. Hell yeah, we did it.
It was in perfect condition. I am still surprised. $10 styrofoam cooler somehow held up to 122,000 feet and fallen.
Our plan initially, when we picked up the payload, was to leave the camera in the box until we got all the way home. We could put the card in a computer and watch it on the big screen. And we got about 5 minutes away from the airport before I had ripped the camera out of the box, and we pulled over at the closest restaurant, set the camera on the table, ordered drinks, and watched the entire 2-hour flight while eating dinner.
Boom.
We have done it.
We did it.
Do like 1, 2, 3 and go? All right. 1, 2, 3, go.
When you're young, people often tell you not to let your head get lost in the clouds. Be realistic, they say. Don't spend your time daydreaming. Dreaming of impossible feats and wild ideas. These dreams are a distraction from real life, and you'll never get it done. What if daydreaming about wild ideas is real life? Perhaps imagining impossible feats is what we're meant to do. And when the impossible becomes the possible, now that is a life worth living.